That time it was called business, and to a professional that seemed like a derogatory word. There are many technologies which come first to India now, be it in diagnostics, be it in therapeutics. You have to empower, you have to encourage, and you have to make it easy. The banking industry has understood that healthcare loans very rarely go back. We sold a house. We had a house in Safjang Enclave. We sold that. I had a flat in Pitampura. We sold that. So many times when things went wrong and you look back, they were the things that went right and which shaped your path going forward. The amount of blessings that she gave, absolutely disproportionate to what we had said. And do what you would want someone to do to you. There are today nearly over 950 US FDA approved AI algorithms. The majority of them, maybe 75% of them, are for radiology. Also, I believe that AI will play a major role in actually breaking the silos across diagnostics.
When you think of modern healthcare, there's been a quiet revolution that has taken place which has kind of impacted the patient outcomes, and this revolution is around the advanced imaging. Now when you look at behind the scans and the reports that we see is a story of a vision, story of courage and relentless persistence. On Wellbeing Voices today I sit with Dr. Harsh Mahajan, whose journey is not just about technology, but it is about overcoming resistance, navigating the regulations, fighting the financial odds, and also balancing the role of being a doctor as well as an entrepreneur. It's a privilege to have you with us, Dr. Mahajan.
Thank you very much, Harbinder. Thank you.
Dr. Mahajan, you came back from US after your training. You were with DRDO and then you were at AIMS briefly, but then you chose to set up your own venture. You set up Mahajan Imaging. Was there anything specific that led you to this decision?
Well, Harbinder, it wasn't that I wanted to set up something of my own or even had any thought of setting up anything on my own. My parents were both teachers, they were principals in schools,
right.
And so all one wanted ever to do was a job. Remember, these were the late 80s. I actually graduated, did my MBBS from Maulana Azad Medical College, did my MD in radiology from PGI Chandigarh, and then had joined All India Institute as a senior resident. I was lucky, fortunate that I won a Rotary Foundation scholarship to go abroad, and they funded it, and I could do this fellowship in MRI at the world famous MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston in the US. And this was 1987-88. My wife and 8-month-old son were with me when we went, and when we went with this thought that we will come back after a year of the fellowship. And as luck would have it, MR during those times was a very new technology even in the US. MD Anderson got a MRI in December 1986 and I was there in July 1987. So I was one of the lucky few who got trained in MRI. And as luck would have it, we decided 1 year, that's more than enough. One has learnt whatever one could. And if we stay longer, then we will develop roots in the US and there will be no going back. As it happened, India's first MRI also got installed in Delhi in a DRDO lab at the Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences in Mass, which is near Delhi University. And so it seemed providential that I've got trained in MRI, and there is now an MRI in Delhi with a vacant position of scientist C, which I qualified for. So we packed our bags and came back. Now, as things happen in the government, and those were, the 80s, a vacant position, for it to be filled, the advertisement took many months. Then after that, the date of the interview would be announced, and then that would be pushed forward, it would change. So it took nearly 2 months, 2 years, for that interview to really happen. Had I even known that I would be interviewed and I may be able to get the job after 2 years, this thought would not have entered the mind that let me do something on my own. Now, when I talked at home that we should do something on our own, set up a MRI, they laughed. They said, this guy's gone crazy. He's talking of crores. The machine was over 2.5 crores even at that time. And if you remember the late 80s and the early 90s, crores you couldn't even, pronounce. It was a zamana of lakhpatis. 1 lakh ki lottery nikalti thi. So, but I kind of persisted, and my father was principal in Hansraj Model School, that's in Punjabi Bagh, where a lot of business people live. So he spoke to some of the parents who were, close to him, and said that my son has come back from the US and this is a new technology he wants to set up, would anyone be interested? And one parent said, I'm ready. And that's how that journey started of entrepreneurship. And it wasn't even called entrepreneur at that time, it was called business, and to a professional that seemed like a derogatory word. It has taken many decades for India to come out of that thing that business is bad. And so this is now 1989. We talked to Wipro G Healthcare had just come together in late 1989, and I had worked on a GE equipment in the US on a Cigna 1.5 Tesla MRI at MD Anderson, and so we talked to GE. Now here is a 28, 29-year-old youngster who has no business background, and so GE took 6 months to even give me a quotation. They said, and rightly so. And so ultimately the order was placed on GE, and then started the struggle for getting the loan done. And remember, this is a loan of over nearly 2.5 crores. And so we approached multiple banks and then reached ICICI because it was a large loan for those times.
Absolutely.
Today, 2.5 crores seems nothing. So, of course, the request was rejected. And there was this young manager in ICICI Bank here in Connaught Place in Delhi who said he was equally disappointed as I was. And he says, Doc, our chairman, Mr. Wagul, is coming to Delhi. I can get you 5 minutes with him. If you can convince him, then maybe the loan can be done. So I met Mr. Wagul and he heard patiently, he got interested, and that 5 minutes extended to about 30 minutes. And then he says, young man, I think I'm convinced. We will give you the loan, but we are not going to take the entire risk. We want you to bring in another institution as well. And so remember, 1 crore, 2.5 crores meant so much that the chairman of ICICI Bank is unwilling to take the entire loan. And so we approached IFCI, and Mr. Davar was the chairman of IFCI. I got to meet him, and he says, we will share it. And that's how the loan got done. And then there are some prerequisites for establishing the LC, the letter of credit. I didn't even know what that means at that time. And so we fulfill all the requirements, and I go to the foreign exchange branch of ICICI Bank for establishment of LC. And the manager there says, Mr. Ganguly, I remember, he says, Doc, the LC can't be established. I said, why? We've fulfilled all the requirements. And then he says, there's no foreign exchange in the country. So remember, this is now March of 1990, and that's when gold went out of the country. And there were only two lines of credit for foreign exchange. One was ADB, Asian Development Bank, and the second was KfW from Germany. Both the credit lines were meant for the manufacturing sector, but were also being used for the service sector, medical, hospitals, hotels. He says, we can't. And then the dilemma was, and we didn't know how long it's going to take. No one had any idea. So then the dilemma was, should we continue, wait, or should we call it off? I'd borrowed $40,000 from my uncles in the US, which was equal to 6,85,000 rupees, and that would go down the drain, everything. So my partner, very strong, he says, Doc Saab, don't worry, we will wait. Of course, we didn't know it's going to take nearly 2 years for the LC to be established. Now, while we waited, that interview of INMAS had happened. I'd been selected. And so while waiting those 2 years, I worked as Scientist C in INMAS. And then December 1991, the LC got established after 1 year and 9 months. And that's when in January the machine came in, and by March we were functional. So I resigned my job, and in March of 1992 we started this MRI. And just to put things in context, we had been delayed by 2 years, but yet we were 2 years before All India Institute got its MRI. So you can imagine how crazy we were to, set up a MRI in this part of the country. And at that time, I think even in 1992, there were probably 5 or 6 MRI scanners in the entire country. And of course, when we look back 35 years, India has come a long, long way. The opening up happened in 91, and that's what enabled the LC to be established. And I think our country has not looked back. The gap in healthcare technology, in healthcare delivery, in medtech that used to exist in the 90s, I think has been bridged. There are many technologies which come first to India now, be it in diagnostics, be it in therapeutics. And so it has been a very exciting, though tough journey over these last 3 decades.
I remember you just mentioned that entrepreneurship and business, there were 2 words that you used. And I said at that point in time when you got into entrepreneurship, it was known as business. Today, after these many years of being a doctor and an entrepreneur, one is, how do you differentiate between being an entrepreneur and being a businessman? And how has your journey evolved to a point where, I remember doctors were never wanting to be seen as entrepreneurs, right? So how has this evolution happened?
You put it so very well. At that time, they would say, he's a doctor, but ye businessman ban gaya. It used to somewhere hurt, because business during those times was a very vilified, word. Entrepreneur, probably we started using the word much later, but the brilliant word of today is startup. I wish we could have been called startups at that point in time, because that's what we were. Yes. And as far as your question regarding the professional job, and business and entrepreneurship, it's a difficult mix. I have, and I still believe till this day, remained more of a professional, engrossed more in day-to-day diagnostics, radiology, MRI, which is my forte. The business part really, one is very hesitant about still, even though it's been 35 years. And one would rather not look at the balance sheet as long as all the expenses are met and something is saved at the end of the day. And remember, for growth, each and every penny that you saved was reinvested in the business, in growth, in setting up more centers, in buying newer technologies. And as a professional radiologist, I can tell you, there is this thing that we must have the best technology. We must be the first to get it. We have to be at par with the world, which may be something which doesn't gel with what a businessman may think, because they would want to squeeze everything out of a machine before actually upgrading or getting a new machine. So there is a dichotomy there of the professional want and what may be good for the business, but somewhere along the line I think you find a balance. And here also I will say my wife Ritu, who is the co-founder of Mahajan Imaging and Labs, and it's called Mahajan Imaging Private Limited. Mahajan Imaging, we couldn't think of any better word at that time. And she has stood shoulder to shoulder. People say she's the woman behind you. I say she's even the woman in front of me. And she has, carried the bigger burden of the running the company, the admin, the HR, the newer projects. So because of that, and because of that partnership, I could concentrate on my own work, which was diagnostics, radiology, then nuclear medicine. We got in one of the first gamma cameras, one of the first PET CT in this part of the country, and many firsts, over time. And also then getting into genomics, next-gen sequencing, now a full-fledged lab. In fact, we have multiple labs now. And I could concentrate on my work. More recent vision of the past 5 years is that what India needs, what actually is recognized globally now, is that we need integrated diagnostics. Till now, we've been working in silos. There's a path lab, there's a radiology department, there's a nuclear medicine department, there's genomics, and newer branches of diagnostics coming, metabolomics, proteomics, and so on and so forth. Artificial intelligence coming in a big way into diagnostics, especially radiology. And so our attempt now is to go forth not only as an imaging player, not only as a radiology and nuclear medicine company, but also bring in all the other aspects so that we can provide our patient with holistic diagnosis where we are able to fuse these branches. Because ultimately, what does a referring physician or what does a patient need is one diagnosis and not so many data sheets which become, it's so much of data now that for someone, a doctor sitting in his OPD, it becomes difficult to look at all the data.
It's very overwhelming
to make sense of it. So we are now venturing forth as someone who is into integrated diagnostics. We're providing diagnosis and data from hemoglobin to next-gen sequencing and from X-ray to PET CT, all under one roof.
Listening from you, I think, the difference that we initially started talking about entrepreneurship and business, I think what I hear you say is that an entrepreneur is driven by passion and not with the balance sheet. You know, it's not a transactional business. It's money, revenues, profits is an outcome of whatever you're doing with passion.
Yeah, that's true. One thing, of course, you have to see that your head is above water.
Absolutely.
You know, because hundreds of families depend on
So it's
your
your
decisions.
duty to ensure that there's a sustainable business.
Absolutely.
When you were talking about, you know, how the business has progressed, one of the things that I was thinking while you were speaking is that a doctor, especially a radiologist, loves to work with his own hands. And I could see the passion with which you're talking about technology, because they want the most modern technology to work on to do a great job. But suddenly, when you're running such a large institution, you're not the only one working. You have other radiologists working in the institution.
Absolutely.
How did you train your mind to take a back seat and say that, listen, I'm not the only one. I trust the work of other people. They are doing as good, or if not a better job than myself. So it requires a lot of training.
You hit the nail on the head. You know, if one were to be one small center with 2-3 modalities, then maybe one person or two people are enough.
Correct.
But if you want to grow and have multiple radiology and diagnostic centers, then you have to build a team.
Correct.
There is no way that one radiologist can look at so many scans. And I realized this early on. And somehow God has been kind that I'm able to trust, I'm able to delegate. I don't want my finger in every pie. I am willing to empower our radiologists, our pathologists, our genomic specialists. I mean, in fact, some of fields I know very little of. And if someone thinks that all the knowledge, all the wisdom of the world resides in one person, then that's being foolhardy. So, you know, there was a time in the early years when I would want that my name is what people take, that patients should come in my name. But over time, as we were building a team, you know, we started talking about the team, because the team together, and today we have over 75 radiologists, cardiologists, pathologists, genomic specialists with us. The team is definitely more powerful and more knowledgeable and better than any one individual. One individual may be very good in one particular aspect of diagnostics, of radiology, of MRI or CT, and we have, you know, seen to it that those who came very young to us have grown in stature in the medical profession, in their own chosen fields. And so ultimately you have to empower, you have to encourage, and you have to make it easy for those who work with you, your colleagues, to rise in the profession. And I believe very sincerely that while technology is important, and because of that, we are always trying to be at the cutting edge, trying to upgrade, change, get new, but the man behind the machine is equally important, if not more important.
Correct.
She or he is the one who's going to provide you the quality. She or he is the one who's going to provide the empathy. And this goes not only for doctors, this goes for every person who works in your centers, be it the security guard outside who's welcoming a patient, or someone who's opening the door, people at the reception, then the GDAs who actually accompany the patient between tests, the technologists, doctors. So everyone is important. And for this team building, again, my wife has been at the forefront because she looks after HR. And somehow, even though we have nearly over 800 people who work with us, she has been able to build this family feeling. And so it's not just about the time spent at work. If someone has a problem at home, we encourage them to share with us so that we are like their mother, father, whom they can, share their problems with, and we try to solve them to the best of our ability where we can. So it is only if you have a happy working environment, satisfied people, that you can expect them to give their very best. And technology matters, but the human capital matters probably even more.
I'm so glad that you brought this up, because I keep saying that a hospital needs to be a hospitable place. Because not only for patients who are coming in, but for your employees to have that sense of belongingness, because it's only then that they will do something with their heart. And a patient is coming, they're already in distress. So उनको मजबूरी में आना पड़ रहा है. But at the end of the day, do they feel satisfied and confident that they're at the right place is about how you make them feel.
Absolutely. And very rightly you said, no one comes to us out of their own free will. And this is what, when new people join us, especially at the front office level, who deal with the patients, their relatives, we tell them that कोई यहाँ खुशी खुशी नहीं आया है, कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो वो आया है. And at times they may be unreasonable because they are distressed, they are under stress, and so don't take it to heart, and don't take it personally. They are under so much tension, and so our people understand, and so because of that, we have so many people who've been coming to us for years, and they will ask for a specific front office person कि मैं उन्हीं से phone पे बात करूँगा, or for a specific doctor, that and we encourage our doctors to talk to the patients, if possible explain in short the report, put a hand on the shoulder, talk to the physicians, so that it becomes more of an interaction rather than just a transaction.
Absolutely. Empathy comes from understanding. Dr. Mahajan, I'm coming back to our earlier conversation where we were talking about how you started and the challenges that you were facing, and you were talking about your meeting with Mr. Wagul of ICICI and Mr. Ganguly. There was a lot of skepticism in terms of investments in an advanced imaging business, because they had not seen this even in the largest of hospitals. Like you said, even AIIMS got a machine much later. And then in the meantime, while this process was going on, you got your job at INMAS and you were already working as a scientist. You were one of the very few people in the country trained on MRI. How did you deal with this skepticism? And were there times when your family was putting pressure that, अच्छी नौकरी मिल गई है, सब कुछ चल रहा है, चलने दो, क्यों इतना पीछे पड़े हो?
Somehow, now that you ask it, this question has never been asked before. I don't think at any point of time did a doubt arise during those 2 years कि ये नहीं करना है. Initial तो था. Once we, my partner said, don't worry, we had got a place on rent. He talked to the landlord and said, हम बाद में दे देंगे. And so it was always, we were driven to actually doing it. Frankly, after that initial discussion, we never thought we won't do it. And so resigning the job and, starting this, I don't think there was any uncertainty or any doubt, despite the fact that, these were the early days of MRI in the country. CT scan itne kam the, other modalities, hardly anything. But, after the initial few weeks, I think once we decided ये करना ही
your conviction was very high.
I mean, I was a youngster. मेरी क्या conviction होगी? It was, I think, more a decision taken by everyone, and let's just go ahead and do it. And also remember, we had given an advance of rupees 15 lakhs to G.
So there was no moving back.
Yeah,
there was
that
no
would
moving
also
back.
have been a problem. And G was also very, during this waiting period, what happened is the rupee got devalued. So from 17 rupees to a dollar, it became 26 rupees to a dollar. So you can imagine the cost of the machine in rupee terms also went up. And that's when G was also very cooperative. They did reduce the dollar amount to some extent. And this was the first MRI scanner that G brought into the country. So I think with everyone cooperating, there was frankly no looking back. And let me tell you, when we started, we were catering to whole of Upper India. I say Upper India because it wasn't just North India.
Correct.
It was Rajasthan, it was Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Bengal, Northeast, UP, Punjab, Haryana, J&K, and of course Delhi, which we were catering to. And yet the technology was so new that in the beginning we would do only 5 cases a day. And when we would do 10 cases, there would be a samosa party, But one thing which, I did during those early years was go from place to place, addressing doctors in conferences, meetings, IMA meetings, radiology meetings, neurology meetings, orthopedic meetings across the whole of this part of the country, more so surrounding Delhi, on the advantages of MRI over CT scan. I remember my first slide always used to be advantages of MRI over CT scan, because remember, if physicians and surgeons don't know the advantages, and this was so very early days, everyone used to call it MIR and not MRI. And so it is incumbent upon those who bring in new technologies to also teach and train and create the awareness. And that, I think, also has held me in good stead over the years, and I continue doing it. In fact, yesterday I had 3 talks on one Sunday, and I think that also differentiated us to some extent. And also somehow when you've taught someone in a medical college or in a conference, the interaction and the relationship becomes a little different. Yes. And the confidence that they get in you also increases. And that has, I think, led us and stood with us these last 35 years, that we are still here and growing.
Awesome. Dr. Mahajan, I read a book called Enchantment. This was many years ago. And it talked about that, if you have an idea, if you want to convince other people, you have to get them involved in your vision, in your dream, so that they're part of the dream and you're not trying to convince them on something. We were talking about skepticism, not only at home, in the industry, and then people, patients. How did you because I can sense that the way you operate, and I've known you for a while now, you involve people in your dream. They feel it is the right thing to do. How have you managed this for yourself? Is it something that happened naturally, or is it something?
I mean, there was no method to this. I don't even know whether it was done in any focused manner. I don't think so. I think it just happened. That is the way I'm built. That is
because
the way.
You said your parents were teachers, and for them to believe in a dream such big at that point in time and say that
they were very, very supportive, and never once did they ever not believe. in what I wanted or what I said, and the thing was always there कि घर भी है और खाना भी मिलेगा, you know, and so somehow there was never that doubt, because after starting in 92, in 96, 97, we set up the second center, and this was with the world's best 1.5 Tesla MRI scanner, the best that GE had ever made, and the first out of their factory, which came to India. The second went to Canada, and the third went to Harvard Medical School. And never, I think, there was a doubt. And also, I will say GE. And I remember Mr. D.A. Prasanna, who was the president and CEO of GE at that time. He was also very supportive. We would never have set up the second center but for his, convincing us and saying, you guys can do it. And to think that the first and the best MRI scanner that GE ever made came to India, and we set it up in Green Park in a residential building on the main road, Aurobindo Marg, started in 97. When we think back, somehow it seems, how could we even do it?
It's an unbelievable thing.
It seems unbelievable. And Mr. D.A. Prasanna, not only for me, but for many entrepreneurs of that time, he played a key role. And then later, after these initial hitches with financing, HFS, healthcare finance, started. And then it became very seamless, getting a loan. And also over the years, the banking industry has understood that healthcare loans very rarely go bad. Correct. Because the intent is always right. The intent is always to pay back. In fact, the middle class
mentality is
jaldi de lo, ki, jaldi khatam karo loan. And so it became easier and easier to do this. And with that 1.5 Tesla MRI, actually we brought functional MRI techniques into the country. Diffusion, perfusion, the radiologists who are hearing will know this, and bold functional MRI. All those were brought in, with that scanner. And that also always helped. You bring in something new, you go about talking about it, and faith in your abilities actually grows in the medical fraternity, and that keeps you going.
In fact, you brought in the memories of my meeting with Mr. Prasanna, where he was talking about his journey at Wipro and how GE Wipro actually happened, and this book that he came up with is a very powerful read about that journey. You just shared about your father, your parents, and their conviction in whatever you're doing. They're saying that, you have a back, we have a house, khana milega. That gives you a lot of confidence to go out and do your dream. How has this experience of their faith in you, faith in your ability, faith in your dreams, and your journey today, where you have your children involved in business and doing their own thing, shaped you as a father, as a parent?
I think, my parents never ever were angry with me that I can remember, or scolded me, or told me you're doing this wrong. And we have tried, letting our children do what they want. Having said that, my father in a sense was also an entrepreneur, even though he worked for the DAV organization. He set up the first public school of the DAVs in 1970 in Punjabi Bagh in New Delhi. It's called the Hansraj Model School, very fine school. And that school was the beginning of a public school movement in the DAV organization. And as of today, they have 1,000 public schools across the length and breadth of the country, DAV public schools. And so, if you see, I was seeing my father also on a salary, but with that same,
Entrepreneurial mindset is what you call it.
yeah, and that same, I would say, strength, power, same gusto, trying to do more and more. And so the home atmosphere, I think, was very, very conducive. And also my wife, even though she used to work with us, but she would be back home at 2 when the kids would come back from school, and somehow they never pestered me about not being at home, because I would leave at 7 a.m., come back at 12, and those were the days when there were hardly any CT scanners also in Delhi. So we would get night calls for head injuries, for strokes, and I would go back again at night. So when I used to leave in the morning, my kids were asleep. When I come back, kids were asleep. So there were times she would bring them, and Sunday used to be a full working day. She would bring them on a Sunday to the center for me to meet them really in person. And so I think family support, without that, it's very difficult for one to have one ways and go about doing things just the way you want them. That was very important.
And Dr. Mahajan, when you started, finance was just one of the issues that existed, But there was another bottleneck that I believe was much bigger than anything else, and that was around the regulatory. How did you, were there any situations, times that you felt frustrated with the bureaucracy?
So many times.
And how did you navigate your way through without losing the momentum?
I think it was just, the good word for it is junoon, that, lage raho. This loan, which was so difficult to get, I'll ask you to guess at what rate of interest it was. And these were two, at that time, Government of India organizations. Just take a wild guess as to the rate of interest.
I don't know, maybe 25%?
Wow, you're nearly there. 27% was the rate of interest which was charged for bringing a technology into the country, which there were hardly 3-4 machines. And you know what was the customs duty on bringing an MRI into the country at that time? It was 204%. But you could go to the government and apply to get a custom duty exemption certificate saying I will do 40% of scans free of charge, and every hospital, every medical institution would sign that and get duty exemption. Whether you did that, those free cases or not, mostly people did not. But even getting those, then you needed an NMIC certificate, not manufactured in India certificate. And all these were very, very, time consuming, difficult. But I guess when you're young and you have that, desire to do something, then you keep pestering people, you keep, and friends and well-wishers. And my father being a teacher, he had many students who were in government, who were in the banking industry. They all helped. So I think if you actually embark on a path, वो कहते कायनात भी आपकी मदद करती है, the whole environment, the universe helps, and that's how you're able to get things done.
So Dr. Mahajan, हर एक की जिंदगी में there are these moments which become the tough moments, and on the hindsight we might think कि ठीक है ये आया था हो गया, but those moments at that point in time can really take a toll on you, where you question your intent, you doubt your own कि मैं कर क्यों रहा हूँ ये सब चीज़ें. Is there, when you look back, is there some moments or any one moment that you think was one of your toughest night and you questioned that ये क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ, and what helped you push through that particular situation?
Well, I think one tough moment was for me in 1998 when actually my partner, who I used to call uncle, he was my father's age, he suddenly passed away due to a heart attack. And so one was in a way left to fend both the business side as well as the professional side on one's own. He had two young boys, they became partners. And somehow the partnership, it was a private limited company. We had 4 directors, they had 5 directors. It was a 55-45% split. Somehow things didn't work out. After uncle passed away. And I think by 2002, 2003, things became rather unpleasant. And those were very difficult days because, you have the whole pressure of the business, the reporting, we were also growing. In 2003, somehow things came to such a head for reasons I would not like to share, that I decided to really just walk away. I left everything we resigned as directors. There were 4 of us, my wife, I, my mother and father. I left my share in the company. And, that's when really Mahajan Imaging and Mahajan Imaging Private Limited came into being. In 1999, we set it up. In 2000, we started a center under that brand in Gangaram Hospital. 2002, I think it was in Jaipur Golden Hospital. But by 2003, things became such that despite the fact that the other 2 ventures were just fledgling ventures, just starting, not making any profits. But I decided that, let's leave the unpleasantness behind. And 2004, we set up a comprehensive center of our own, which was called Mahajan Imaging Center in Hoskas. The then health minister of the country, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, actually came to inaugurate it. We had some of the best equipment. We started CT coronary angiography and high-end MR, apart from ultrasound, X-ray and the other things. And so those were difficult times when, frankly, we sold our house. We had a house in Savjang Enclave. We sold that. I had a flat in Pitampura. We sold that. There was some farmland. We sold that. And bought a building. And GE again came to the rescue, that they gave me, I think at that time it was a 16 crore loan for equipment, which was funded entirely through a loan because we had no money. So they trusted me, and that's why, our relationship with GE and has been very, very strong over the years. I used to meet Mr. Jack Welch, the chairman, when he would come to India. Then Jeff Immelt became the chairman of GE Medical Systems, and then took over as chairman of and CEO of GE. And so those were difficult times.
From both these situations where the partnership went through a tough time, you had to exit it on not such a pleasant note, and then this GE coming in to the rescue. Obviously nothing could have happened without the family support when you were taking these tough calls on selling properties, etc., to invest in business. What have been your learnings which you today consider as wisdom from your journey, and which could be something that you would like to share with people who are looking at an entrepreneurial journey, that what is it that your wisdom says, that what is it that you should do, not do, be careful of?
I would say that in any given circumstance, do what you want to do, what you set out to do, and what you think is possible. Do the right thing. And I've seen that when you look back 5, 10, 15 years later at those so-called bad times, probably that is what was right for you. And I do believe that there's a much stronger force which controls our destiny, controls our lives. We with our limited knowledge, our limited vision for ourselves, our limited wisdom, if you like to call it, probably can only think that much and that far, whereas there's a bigger force, God, whatever name you want to give it, who knows what is best for you. And so I would say, don't give up. Failure is only the next step to success. And also, and I say this very often because so many times when things went wrong and you look back, they were the things that went right and which shaped your path going forward. And so I tell youngsters that you want to do, say, you want to become a radiologist, you don't get radiology, you get medicine, you get surgery, or someone wanted to be an engineer, he couldn't get in, got into, did his graduation, then did MBA. I mean, you have to play with the cards that are dealt to you. There is no point being so disappointed that you lose heart, lose your way. Play with the cards that you have. If you wanted A but got B, be the best in that field and you will still rise to the top. And this is something also, the gist of the Gita, which says, आप अपने कर्म करिए और फल की चिंता नहीं करिए. Exactly, that you do your own duty and leave the results to God, and they will work out right. But you have to do your duty, you have to work hard, you can't sit at home, you can't just give up. If you do that, then you've lost.
Your journey into Mahajan Imaging actually started, if you look back, when you did not get your desired field in your post-graduation. And at every point in time, now when you look back, you are able to say that, universe plays its cards and it is creating a path and you probably go with the flow. एक भजन भी है ना, वो कहते हैं कोई कारण होगा.
Yes.
So do you today believe in destiny? Do you today believe in the law of attraction as an individual, as a human being?
100%. I believe in the law of destiny, of whatever will be, but it's not destiny sitting at home.
You have to build, you have to work on it.
You have to do your part of the job, whatever is necessary. You can't say मेरे हाथों में लिखा है तो ये होएगा ही. वो कैसे होएगा? आपको तो अपना एफर्ट करना है. So that is very, very important. And you mentioned this, that frankly I wanted to do internal medicine. And in PGI during those days, when you went for the entrance exam, for every subject, there was a separate entrance exam.
Yes.
It wasn't multiple choice questions, जैसे आजकल होते हैं common entrance test. So I wrote the medicine entrance exam, which I wanted to do. I mean, if you ask me, I've even forgotten why I wrote the radiology entrance exam. There must have been some trigger at that point of time. Maybe I read about ultrasound or CT or MRI or some new technology, and I wrote the radiology entrance exam, and कोई list भी नहीं लगती थी तब, of who's qualified, who's not. Next day you would all be sitting in a conference hall, and there were actually 4 professors sitting on the stage, and if you qualified, your name was called out. Right. And my name was called out. I go up, and there were 2 seats in medicine and 2 seats in radiology, and my name is called out. I go up, and they say you are first on waiting list in medicine, which means I was 3rd in the list. Right. And you are first in radiology, and they gave me 3 or 4 seconds to choose. वो मैं कहता हूँ ये डेस्टिनी थी, वो भगवान ने तब सही चीज़, सही आंसर मैंने दे दिया. I took radiology and I became a radiologist. Otherwise, destiny would have taken me somewhere else. Absolutely. If I'd said नहीं I'll wait, I'll see, शायद wait list वाले को मिल जाए. So that's why I say, I mean, examples from my own life, when things, and I was pretty disappointed, and the first month in radiology I was pretty unhappy, but then slowly I took to it.
And Dr. Mahajan, do you remember the day when you opened up the doors of your first center and the first patient who walked in? What was the emotion? I mean, was it reassuring about your dream and you felt that all that struggle was worth it? What did you go through?
See, I'll tell you, in the beginning it was I actually approached 3 hospitals because MRI at that time was majorly focusing on imaging of the brain, the spine and the joints. So from the brain and spine point of view, I approached 3 hospitals, the All India Institute, GB Pant Hospital and RML Hospital, which had both very good neurology, neurosurgery departments as well as good orthopedic departments. And I told them that any deserving patient you send to me, I'll do free of charge. Because like I said, unless you are able to demonstrate the advantages of a new technology, why will anyone use it? And so most of the patients who came in the beginning were patients whom we did free of charge. And frankly, I do not remember the first patient who came in and paid, but I do remember that in 1992, one very famous and very pious personality, the Maharaj of Bias came, Radha Swamis, and it was a transforming moment. Young, he was very young at that time, very handsome, and all along the roads of Pusa Road, where we had our center, there were his disciples sitting. They somehow came to know that he'll be coming, and that was amazing to see. And then also, I think the President of India at that time, Mr. Shankar Dayal Sharma, he came over. And I was still very young, 93, I was 33, 34 years old. So those, I mean, one
energizing moments.
One can't describe the emotion that you feel if the President of India is coming to you and, he's trusting you with his own scans and so there have been many enriching and defining moments over the years. One lady I remember, in our centers right from the beginning, we've had that free tea and coffee is given to everyone who comes to the center. And this we continue till this day. And there was this, not very well-to-do lady, from the rural areas of Rajasthan, who had come, and so she asked for tea, and our boy went and gave a cup of tea to her, And then she started fiddling with her, clothes, trying to take out money. And he tells her, "Koi paise nahi hai." She couldn't understand. So she's still trying to find the money and asking, "Kitne paise?" And he says, "Kuch nahi hai." The amount of blessings that she gave, I mean, absolutely disproportionate to what we had said. And till this day, and this incident may have happened 33, 32 years ago, that lady and the anklets that she was wearing is still, fresh in my mind. She would have been some 60, 65-year-old lady. So, some moments stay stuck in your memory, which you will never forget and which you will forever cherish.
And also they reassure you that what you are doing is the right thing to do, and which is why probably you continue to do certain traditions in your center. Dr. Mahajan, as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, what kind of a mindset shift? I've asked you this question as an entrepreneur, as a doctor, but what are the biggest lessons on building trust? Building trust with your patients, building trust with your teams, building trust with the doctors you work with outside your center, because whatever diagnostics does is the fundamental basis on which the treatment happens. So how do you build this trust across the ecosystem?
I think you have to put yourself in that individual's place and, do what you would want someone to do to you who's sitting in my place. This is what I say, कि आप अपने आप को उस पोजीशन में देखिए और फिर आप करिए. And I feel that if your conscience is clear, if you're honest, then that trust actually builds very transparently. The way you even speak to someone, I mean, people are able to judge कि वो उनके हित की बात है, वो सच्ची बात है कि नहीं है. So I would say that your conscience has to be clear and you have to do the best as per your abilities, and the trust then automatically gets built. The very fact that they've come to you for something is due to some element of trust. You have to only stand true to it and not belie it.
I remember during my days of personal branding, I used to tell everyone that all the kind of marketing and promotion, signages, etc. that you put, just establish a promise in the minds of people. But actual personal branding is when people walk into your center, basis that perception, and you hold true to the perception that they have. And that is a permanent brand that you build in the minds of people.
I even say, that, and I tell all my radiologists, pathologists, doctors, that someone has come to you for a test, he has faith in you, in your center, that they have come. So they do believe that you will do a good job. But what they will remember is those 2 minutes you spend talking to them and putting a hand on the shoulder is what will actually differentiate you from someone else. And that is what 10 years, 20 years down the line is what that person will remember and remember you for.
From being one of the first few MRI trained radiologists in the country to set up one of the most advanced centers in the country, you've seen the evolution of how the imaging space has, how the evolution has actually happened from X-ray to MRI to PET scan to now AI driven and genomics today. Where is the next disruption going to be coming from?
I think the next disruption is going to be through artificial intelligence in healthcare, and the way it is going to transform the practice of medicine, both in the diagnostic field as well as in the therapeutic field. With AI algorithms, especially in radiology, since it's been digital from day one, it has been the first one to get impacted. There are today nearly over 950 US FDA approved AI algorithms. The majority of them, maybe 75% of them, are for radiology. And then for cardiology, neurology, dermatology, ophthalmology, and slowly from just diagnostics, it's also coming into treatment algorithms. What is right? If a person has diagnosis A with this, what is the right treatment? So I think the disruption, if we call it disruption, or the change, or the dramatic change that's going to come, is AI empowered doctors will over time replace those who do not use AI. And I see that AI in healthcare, if used properly, with the checks and balances, will be only advantageous, will be only useful. Because I feel that a doctor with the knowledge and the depth of AI will be more empowered, will deliver a more accurate diagnosis, will make less mistakes, will do things with very rapid turnaround times, so use lesser time, and hence be able to increase productivity. A radiologist who writes 25-30 reports today, how can that radiologist write 100 or 200 or 500? Right. With AI being the backbone? And how, because of this increased productivity, especially in a country like ours, we will be able to further bring down costs. As you know, we are the cheapest healthcare destination, cheapest quality healthcare destination in the world. How can we, despite all of that, increase productivity so that we are further able to make healthcare more affordable? And so also I believe that AI will play a major role in actually breaking these silos across diagnostic fields. It will be able to provide, it will be able to democratize healthcare, be able to provide healthcare even in far-flung areas, provide access, provide, radiologists in areas where there are no radiologists available. Through AI, we will be able to do that, and also probably empower, doctors, physicians sitting in tier 3, tier 4 areas without the advantage of technology to be able to bring them up a level. Can a doctor sitting in a tier 3 where there is very few neurologists or cardiologists, can they, with the use of AI, be able to do something which only cardiologists or neurologists do now? Absolutely. So I feel this is, I would not call it a disruptor in that sense, but enhancer of our capabilities, and ultimately democratize the healthcare delivery systems across geographies.
Yeah, I think what you said has a lot of merit, because I think what AI does today is bridging the gap between where we don't have the doctors to still get access to diagnostics and make teleconsultations, medicine a reality in a true sense.
Yes, it's still nascent, it's still the beginning, but I'm sure in 5 years it's going to be mainstream.
Right. And secondly, I think the errors are going to be reduced.
Yes.
Because the doctor will have a lot of meaningful information, not just targeted what he's looking for.
We've done a lot of work in the field of artificial intelligence at Mahajan Imaging and Labs. We have a research division called Caring, our Center for Advanced Research in Imaging, Neurosciences and Genomics. And, we are proud of the fact that the first paper ever to be written in the Lancet in 2018 came from India, from our group along with our collaborators, Cure.ai out of Mumbai. And really, you mentioned about reduction of errors. We've done a multi-central trial, a paper written up already a few years ago, where even Mass General Hospital, Harvard Medical School was part of that trial, where we've seen just chest x-rays and compared them with AI reading chest x-rays and looking at missed findings, and these were in 2 digits in percentage. So definitely AI can enhance our capabilities, but again, if used properly.
Absolutely. And I think, one more advantage of imaging, the data that is emerging out of it, is making sense of the data, because with AI today you can actually put intelligence around the data that exists, and India, with its sheer population and the number of screenings increasing, we are at a point where we could be the hub for research that happens based on.
Harbinder, I would hope that, but right now, and I do this talk where I have one slide which says too much of data, just as you mentioned, 1.4 billion population, so many hospitals, too much of data. And then the next slide says too little data. Because when you actually go and look for digital data, it's hardly there. It's so disjointed, so heterogeneous. People are still writing, prescriptions and diagnoses, and so the government, I feel, has taken a step in the right direction by bringing in the National Digital Health Mission, where they say that healthcare across the country should get digitized, and if that becomes a reality, then we will be the powerhouse of data that we should be. Right. But between actually the vision and bringing it to fruition on the ground, there is a lot of work that will need to be done. There is a lot of money, billions of dollars that will need to be spent, and there is a lot of hand-holding of small centers, small hospitals, clinics that will need to be done. But the vision is correct, and I do feel that this lack of digitization in this country, we may be able to leapfrog and become digital with the private and the government sector working hand in hand, just as we did with telephones. I mean, landlines, we used to wait 10, 15 years to get a landline. Right. Today, on the click of a button, you get a mobile phone. So we were able to leapfrog here and in fact get ahead of most of the world in terms of mobile telephony, and similar, I think, is the opportunity that is available to us in the healthcare field if we were to follow the government's vision, which is actually building a skeleton on which all of us hope to join, and then there would be data which is digitized, which is transportable. Someone gets a scan or a treatment done in Delhi, now is in Bangalore, has a problem, that data is available there. It's a great vision, but it will take a lot of doing.
आपने जो लास्ट में बोला ना, it will take a lot of doing. When you look at the government and its work that it is doing, the intent is amazing. I mean, the farsightedness, the intent of making this a reality is great. But we were talking about what the true meaning of PPP today is. It's not public-private partnership, it could be private-private partnership. And also because, there's while the intent is there, but there's a lot of shortcoming in the actions that need to happen to make that intent a reality. But the challenge in the private sector is that today the people are not trusting of the Indian healthcare provider, the private healthcare provider. And this is probably because of the dichotomy between what the government is providing versus what the private is providing, without sharing the reality of the underlying systems.
See, I think, I'm sorry, I'm barging in. I think it's that no one realizes what the costs.
Which is exactly, yes.
So, we've been wanting for a long time that the government and the private sector sit together and do transparent costing study of various treatments, procedures that happen in hospitals. Patient or the general citizen doesn't realize is that when for a certain treatment in, say, All India Institute or a Safjung hospital, 5,000 rupees are charged, and the same when you go to a private hospital, the charges are 45,000. What people don't realize is that they are getting subsidized healthcare.
Somebody is paying
for
that.
Yes, in fact, through Ayushman Bharat and so many schemes, it's free. Absolutely. In fact, for many years before this, even 5,000 rupees wasn't charged. It used to be all free. But at the back, the government is spending thousands of rupees to be able to provide you that. I mean, if you see, if we take the All India Institute itself, its annual budget is over 5,000 crores. So, apart from the learning, teaching, the research on which the money is spent, it is also spent on healthcare delivery for patients who come there. So, there is a cost to providing certain treatment, and unless we know what those costs are in our environment, I think saying that government में तो 5,000 में होता है, आप 45,000 का treatment क्यों कर रहे हैं, that is not right. And so transparency will bring trust. Once we know what the costs are, then you can see that most healthcare, most hospitals are not making money hand over fist.
Correct.
I mean, it takes nearly 8-10 years before a hospital starts making money. Absolutely. And that's why if you see investments in hospitals are few and far between. If it was so very good, there would be much more money coming into private healthcare. What you're seeing and which makes headlines is some private equity person coming and buying a share in an existing entity. Correct. And that then one sees, oh, it's valued at such and such. But look at their profits. And also, because of technology enhancement and upgradation that happens, you have to keep reinvesting. So frankly, I tell people, if there are much easier ways of making money, if money is what you want to make, then no point coming into healthcare. Especially with greenfield projects, with new projects, where the gestation period is very long. And you face so many risks, so many liabilities, which you may not face in other businesses, because ultimately you're dealing with human lives. And so this, I think the only way this lack of trust which society has as in private healthcare institutions, and I don't defend those who are doing wrong in private healthcare. I'm no defender of their ways and means, but we need to realize that there is certain cost to building a hospital. You look at land now in Delhi. There was a time when you could get hospital land at a few lakhs an acre. Correct. Today it will be 50-60 crores an acre. Then to make the building, then the latest equipment, all of that costs money. So ultimately, who's going to pay for it? It's the paying patient who comes. And so I think this debate is very, very necessary, and where the private healthcare sector is doing wrong, that needs to be corrected. I don't defend it, but to paint everyone with the same brush is also not right. And also, I would emphasize, one needs to look at the costs of the public healthcare delivery system as well. How much is the government spending when say a heart surgery is done for a patient in one of the government hospitals? If we know that, then if the private sector is charging much more than what the costs are, then you can fault them, but not otherwise.
Absolutely. I think it will be just fair for people to understand that they're not being unfairly treated by the private sector.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't defend those who
Absolutely.
may be doing wrong, but I think people need to realize that healthcare delivery systems in India today deliver highest quality of care, and someone falls sick in the morning, you have your diagnosis by the afternoon, and if it requires surgery, it's done the same night or the very next day. Whereas even if you were to go into the Western countries, which have excellent hospitals, but look at how long it takes. People come from there and get their tests done here, they get some treatments done here. Their emergency systems are top class. If you are going into a hospital in an ambulance, you will get care. But you go to the emergency, it may be a few hours before you're looked at. And for getting a OPD consult, it may be months. And this is not only in England or in Canada, but also in the US, where again it's a struggle, and the costs are 10, 20, 50 times more for the same kind of treatment that is given here.
Absolutely. And Dr. Mahajan, when we are talking about trust, people have a grudge or a misunderstanding of how the doctors are treating them. And I remember, you and I were talking once, and you brought up this issue that, there's a time when a patient turned into a consumer, right? Can you explain that?
See, as a doctor, I can tell you, we have this very close doctor-patient relationship we've had for ages.
Absolutely.
What actually happened is that when the Consumer Protection Act came, doctors were left out of that. They were not included.
Right.
But they were also not excluded. Okay?
It was a gray area.
So it was a gray area, and some organizations went to the Supreme Court in the early 90s, late 80s or early 90s, and said that doctors need to come under the Consumer Protection Act. And the Supreme Court agreed, and hence the entire medical fraternity, the services, they all came under the Consumer Protection Act. So what really happened is, I'm the doctor, there's the patient sitting in front, we have a doctor-patient sacrosanct relationship, you're confiding in me, I know things about you which, maybe at times your closest relatives may not know. And there was this relationship, and suddenly you're told, no. That is not a patient. It may be a patient, but that is a consumer. That is a customer. And so what do we become? We become a seller. And that, I think, also led over time to some erosion of trust in changing the doctor-patient relationship. I feel it still exists, but there has been dilution. And also this led to the practice of patients filing cases, sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes maybe not such right reasons, against doctors, against hospitals, against institutions. And this is not just the private sector. Even in the government sector, you have, consumer protection cases being filed. And so what this led to is the practice of defensive medicine, something which happened previously in the West. So previously, you would, on your clinical judgment, on the examination that you did, a few little tests that you did, you would start your treatment. But if you missed out something, even with the best of intent, and you may be highly competent, the presumption was that the patient can go to court. And frankly, I tell you, most doctors are, the scared kinds. थोड़ा सा भी कुछ होता है तो heartbeat तेज हो जाती है. And I can tell you that this led to the practice of defensive medicine, that tests, suppose someone comes with a headache and I don't do a CT scan or a MRI scan, and a year down the line, in 1 out of maybe 50,000 patients, someone will have a brain tumor, and I miss that, then I open myself up to litigation. So more and more testing started being done. Of course, technology is also able to pick up things early, is able to make correct diagnosis, so it is necessary to use it. But this led to practice of defensive medicine, defending myself, the
So it's sort of a fear
treating
of
doctor कि मेरे पे case ना हो जाए. And slowly over the years, then you get used to that system. So the younger lot who are coming are totally geared to this system. And so there was a time with a stethoscope, we will try hearing the heart sounds and trying to make a diagnosis. Now, and we know the echo does a much better job, to सीधा आप echo ही करा लीजिए. So that's how practice of medicine changed. And to some extent, to some little extent, I think that Supreme Court judgment about the Consumer Protection Act also was a trigger. Patients can file complaints against a doctor, I'm told, in 6 or 7 different forums. And the doctor has to, if they so do, the doctor has to defend herself or himself in all those forums. So that also has led to some erosion of trust, and I would say modification or change in the doctor-patient relationship.
Dr. Mahajan, what is that one piece of advice and one piece of warning that you'd like to share with a doctor who's looking or intending to set up a practice more from an entrepreneurial point of view? What is it that you would like to share with them based on your own experiences?
I would say there is no replacement for hard work. There is no replacement for being present most of the time. In fact, I will quote to you something that was quoted to me when I started in private practice. This doctor told me there is the ABC of practice. And I think that applies equally, if not more so, to an entrepreneurial effort. And A, they said, is availability. You may be the best doctor in the world, but when a patient needed you, you were not available, so you're of no good to him.
Correct.
B, they said, is behavior.
Right.
How you interact, the empathy, the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you are able to provide succor. And C, they said, is competence.
Right.
And believe you me, all three are very important. And so for an entrepreneur, it is very, very important to be always available. I mean, 24/7. Even today, 35 years down the line, my phone is on 24 hours of the day. It's never on. Even if I go abroad, it's always on.
Right.
And I'm available. And also, I would say, you know, choose your area well, look at what you want to achieve. And for entrepreneurs in the medtech sector, and we've, like I told you, we have a research division, we dabble in AI. In fact, Carpal.ai, you know, AI platform got incubated in Mahajan Imaging and Labs. And I would say that rather than making a solution first and then looking at what problem it solves, actually speak to the medical fraternity, and this is for those in IITs and in medical colleges. Try to identify problems that are causing issues, problems that need to be solved, problems that you as entrepreneurs can solve, and then build a solution for them. And don't do it vice versa. You'll be surprised how many people, even today, you know, make a solution and then try to find whether it solves a problem or not. And then it may be brilliant. It may be brilliant technology, but if it doesn't serve the purpose or solve a problem that I'm facing in a hospital environment, then I will never use it. So that's what I'll say.
Absolutely. And Dr. Mahajan, my last question to you as a closing note to this conversation, beautiful conversation, is that 30 years from now, what is the legacy that you would want to be remembered as?
I would say I would be very happy if people remembered me as a good human being, as a good radiologist, as someone who spoke the truth, as someone who had empathy, as someone who made a lot of friends, both within the healthcare industry as well as outside, and someone who could impact the younger lot of doctors to follow a path where they could bring change to lives of patients. Because you know, I tell all youngsters that everything that we do, the technology that we make, the new stuff that we get, the new trainings that we get, the new hospitals that we make, ultimately are for the benefit of the patient. So put the patient at the center of your universe if you are going to be working in the healthcare industry, be it medtech, be it healthcare delivery, be it diagnostics, be it hospitals. You have to keep at the center the patient, because everything that we are doing is for the benefit of the patient.
You know, Dr. Mahajan, this has been by far the brilliant, most useful conversation that I've had in a long time. And you know, it's beautiful to understand, because you know, while I can sense the passion that you have for technology, for the latest equipment, but you're understanding that innovation is not just about the machinery or the technology. It is about the people behind these machines, people behind the technology, and their intent to push the boundaries to do the right thing for that patient who should be the center of the universe. And so that's been a big takeaway from this particular conversation. And another thing, when I look back at your journey, how you began and where you are today, it is been through challenges, but the conviction in your own self, the conviction in your ability to serve, and the commitment, you know, leads you to have the, you know, kind of take you through all these challenges to help you where you are able to fulfill that dream and turn that into a reality. And this question, in my opinion, starts with just answering why not here, and why not me, and why not now. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Harbinder, for letting me bare my heart, share some of my most inner thoughts. And in the end, I'd like to say to the youngsters, something which I repeat probably ad nauseum is मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं, मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जिनके सपनों में जान होती है, पंख से कुछ नहीं होता, हौसलों से उड़ान होती है. So go ahead, do what you want to do, go where your heart takes you, and God will be with you. Do well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahajan.
Thank you.
What a brilliant conversation, sir.
Thank you.